She married a human for Truce, then watched him fight with the of legends. Below, the bustling streets were filled with the hum of hover carriages, merchants calling out their wares, and the occasional roar of distant starships. Lyra's gaze, however, was fixed on the horizon, where a silver streak cut across the sky, a human ship approaching the planet. It had been days since she received the official message from the Council. The human commander, Elias Cade, had arrived to formalize the truce. Centuries of war had scarred the galaxy. Entire star systems were abandoned, left to drift in silence after battles that had claimed billions. And now, by decree of the High Council, a marriage had been arranged to seal the fragile peace between the Valorians and humans. Lyra's fingers gripped the balcony rail tightly. She had been trained for diplomacy, strategy, and war, yet the idea of marrying a human, someone from a race her people considered impulsive, reckless, and soft, made her stomach churn with doubt. She had heard the stories. Humans were bold, yes, but often careless. Their victories were unpredictable, sometimes seeming lucky rather than skillful. And yet here he was, the one who would decide the fate of billions simply by becoming her husband. "Your Highness," came a voice behind her. Lyra turned to see her aide, Marin, a slender Valorian with silver hair and eyes like polished steel. "The human ship has landed. They are requesting immediate audience." Lyra nodded. "Very well, prepare the council chamber. I will meet him there." The palace corridors echoed with the soft hum of energy lights as Lyra walked toward the grand chamber. Every step was calculated, as if she were moving through a battlefield. Her mind replayed the council's words. "He may be human, princess, but he is a commander. He is clever." "He must be respected." "Clever," Lyra repeated silently, "or perhaps merely daring." When she entered the chamber, she saw him for the first time. Elias Cade was taller than most Valorians, broad-shouldered with hair dark as night and eyes that seemed to see through her very thoughts. He wore the uniform of a human commander, practical, unadorned, but commanding. There was an ease in his posture, a calmness that did not belong to a man stepping into the palace of a war-weary alien empire. Lyra's first instinct was to analyze him. Humans often relied on instinct rather than calculation, yet there was a sharpness in his eyes that suggested strategy, intelligence, and patience. For the first time, she felt a flicker of curiosity. "Princess Lyra," he said, his voice even respectful yet carrying a quiet confidence. "It is an honor to meet you." "The honor is mine, Commander Cade," she replied, her voice steady but cautious. "I hope our union will bring the peace our peoples desperately need." Elias inclined his head. "I hope so, too." The ceremony that followed was solemn and precise. The hall shimmered with crystal lights and holographic banners displaying the histories of both civilizations. Lyra followed every ritual she had been taught, reciting the vows with perfect clarity. Elias did the same, though he added a subtle gesture, a human tradition, she noted, that was meant to signify trust. It was a simple touch of his hand to the crystal orb between them, a symbol of their commitment. As the final words were spoken, the chamber erupted in applause. Diplomats, council members, and ambassadors nodded in approval. Outside, citizens watched the ceremony on broadcast screens, hoping that this marriage would finally end decades of conflict. Lyra forced a smile, though inside her mind was uneasy. This man was a stranger. She did not know his methods, his values, or how he thought. Humans, she reminded herself, were unpredictable. Could one man really ensure peace between two civilizations? The following days were filled with introductions, briefings, and formalities. Elias moved through the palace with quiet efficiency, observing everything: the security systems, the troop deployments, the trade routes. He asked questions that seemed simple, yet revealed layers of strategy Lyra had never considered. One evening, Lyra found him in the palace gardens, studying the stars. The twin suns had set, leaving a sky full of shimmering constellations. "You enjoy looking at the stars," she observed, her voice softer than she intended. Elias glanced at her and smiled faintly. "I do. It reminds me of why peace matters. So many worlds, so many lives, all fragile." Lyra considered his words. Fragile lives, yes, but hers had always been measured, disciplined. She had never thought about fragility the way humans did. "And yet you think marriage can protect them?" she asked, a hint of skepticism in her tone. "I think understanding each other can," he replied. "Marriage may be symbolic, but it's also a start. It's proof that two different peoples can cooperate rather than fight." Lyra's brow furrowed. Cooperation was a Valorian ideal, yet humans seemed to embody it differently. She noticed how he listened to her opinions without judgment, how he asked questions not to challenge but to learn. Days passed, and rumors of unrest reached the palace. Rogue factions on both sides were unhappy with the truce. Smugglers, pirates, and mercenaries took advantage of the uncertainty. Lyra was anxious. A single misstep could undo the fragile alliance. She expected Elias to rely on brute force or showy displays of power. Instead, he suggested measures that were unusual for her people. He reinforced supply routes, negotiated quietly with local leaders, and even proposed opening dialogue with minor factions rather than attempting to crush them immediately. His methods were subtle, yet effective. Lyra began to see a pattern. Humans might not always fight with strength, but they fought with wit, strategy, and resilience. One night during a council meeting, the warning alarms blared. A group of rogue Valorian ships had attacked a nearby trade station. Lyra braced herself for the arrival of military reinforcements, expecting chaos. Elias, however, remained calm. "We have limited forces here," he said, looking at the maps projected in the chamber. "But if we coordinate civilians, local security, and a few trusted fleets, we can contain the threat without large-scale conflict." Lyra's eyes widened. "You expect to stop them without soldiers." "Not without soldiers," he corrected, "with smart use of them." "Strategy over strength. Predictable patterns are weaknesses, Princess. Humans have learned that." By dawn, the rogue attack had been contained. No major losses, no destruction of critical infrastructure. Lyra could hardly believe it. She had spent years studying war tactics, yet she had never seen such efficiency from so few resources. That night, Lyra stood on her balcony again, looking at the same twin suns that had greeted Elias' arrival. Her thoughts were unsettled. She had married him for peace, expecting a symbol, perhaps a charming diplomat. Instead, she had a partner who could think, adapt, and command respect in ways she had never anticipated. And for the first time, she felt a spark of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years: hope. A soft voice behind her drew her attention. "You're thinking about him again," Marin said, leaning against the doorway. Lyra sighed. "He is not what I expected." Marin nodded. "I see that, but perhaps that is exactly what we need. The galaxy has been waiting for someone who can surprise the legends themselves." Lyra let the words settle. She didn't yet understand all the mysteries of humanity, nor did she fully trust Elias Cade. But she knew one thing. The next steps in their marriage and in the fragile peace between their peoples would be far from simple. Little did she know this marriage, arranged as a mere political tool, would soon force her to witness feats of courage, strategy, and determination that even the oldest legends of the galaxy could not rival. And Elias Cade, the human she had married for Truce, would prove that humans were far more than her people had ever imagined. The galaxy, it seemed, was about to learn a lesson in humility. The sun had barely risen over the horizon when alarms shook the palace. Lyra woke to the blaring sound, her heart racing. She rushed to the council chamber where the glow of holographic star maps lit the room in urgent red. "Princess Lyra," one aide shouted, "we have multiple rogue fleets entering the neutral sector." "They are heavily armed and moving fast." Lyra's eyes darted to Elias, who was already analyzing the incoming threat with calm precision. He tapped his fingers on the projection, adjusting fleet positions and plotting trajectories. "They aren't organized," he said, noting the chaotic movements of the rogue ships. "But they are dangerous. We need to respond immediately, or the neutral sector will be lost." Lyra's stomach tightened. Years of training told her that humans usually panicked in such situations. Yet Elias' calm, methodical approach made her pause. His eyes were steady, his mind working faster than any human she had ever met. "Elias, what is your plan?" she asked, trying to keep her voice firm despite the rising panic around them. He looked at her and gave a small, reassuring smile. "We adapt. We can't match them ship for ship, but we can outthink them, watch and help where needed." Lyra swallowed. "Outthink them," she repeated. She had always relied on strength, on overwhelming force. Thinking a fleet of rogue warriors seemed impossible. Elias tapped the map again. "We'll use the terrain, coordinate civilians, and strike where they least expect. They rely on brute power. We rely on strategy." Marin, who had been quietly observing, leaned toward Lyra. "This is why humans survive, even against impossible odds," she whispered. As the first wave of rogue ships entered the neutral sector, Elias issued commands with calm authority. Human and Valorian fleets moved together under his guidance, creating defensive formations that twisted and turned like living patterns. Lyra watched, astonished, as humans on the bridges and in the skies executed his orders with near-perfect timing. "They're following him," she muttered. "They trust him," Marin replied, "which is more than we expected." The rogue ships attacked in waves, each more aggressive than the last, yet every time they thought they could break the formation, Elias had already predicted it. He had positioned mining drones to create false obstacles, redirected patrol ships to ambush points, and even used communications jamming to confuse the enemy. Lyra felt her disbelief turning into awe. She had expected humans to fight with reckless courage, but what she saw was a combination of courage and cleverness. Each move was calculated yet adaptable. He was not merely surviving, he was winning. Hours passed as the battle raged. Explosions lit the skies and the roar of engines filled the air. The rogue fleets pressed harder, hoping to overwhelm the defenders with sheer numbers, but Elias stayed several steps ahead. At one point, a massive ship, larger than any other in the sector, aimed directly at the civilian convoy. Lyra gasped, expecting disaster. Elias' eyes narrowed. "We can't destroy it. Too many civilians nearby. Divert it instead." He tapped the map, giving precise instructions to a small squadron of human pilots. They swooped around the rogue ship, luring it into a narrow asteroid field. Lyra watched in stunned silence as the massive vessel became trapped among the rocks, forced to retreat to avoid destruction. That was brilliant," she whispered. Elias glanced at her, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. "Sometimes the smartest move is not to fight directly, Princess. Strength alone does not win wars." The battle continued well into the night. Lyra found herself moving between command stations, observing Elias' decisions, noting how humans adapted to new threats instantly. Each pilot, each soldier seemed to have confidence in his judgment, even when the odds were stacked against them. By dawn, the rogue fleets had been repelled. No civilian ships were lost, and the neutral sector remained secure. The council members erupted in cautious applause, while Lyra felt a mixture of relief and disbelief. How did you do that?" she asked him as the room slowly emptied. Elias shrugged, wiping sweat from his brow. "I watched, listened, and predicted. Humans survive by expecting the unexpected, that's all." Lyra shook her head. "That was more than cleverness, that was genius." He smiled faintly. "Or maybe just determination. We fight for what we value, Princess, and we refuse to let fear dictate our actions." For the first time, Lyra felt a shift in her perception of humans. She had married Elias to secure a truce, expecting diplomacy, perhaps a symbol of unity. Instead, she had witnessed a human mind at work in the heat of danger, bold, adaptable, and unfailingly courageous. The next day, Elias requested a meeting with the neutral sector leaders. Lyra followed, curious to see how he would handle diplomacy after the chaos of battle. He spoke with clarity and honesty, acknowledging the risks while offering protection and cooperation. His words were simple, but they carried weight. Humans, she realized, did not rely on grand gestures or elaborate ceremonies. They spoke the truth, acted decisively, and inspired others to follow. By evening, the leaders of the neutral sector were not only grateful, but eager to form stronger alliances with humans and Valorians alike. Lyra could hardly believe the change she had seen in just 24 hours. As they returned to the palace, Lyra observed Elias quietly. He walked with ease, unshaken by the recent battle, yet his mind seemed always alert, always calculating. "You are unlike anyone I have ever met," she said softly. "And you are unlike anyone I expected to marry," he replied with a small grin. Lyra laughed lightly, a sound she had not made in days. "I suppose that is true." Later that night, Lyra found herself in the palace library, staring at the stars through the high windows. The memory of the battle lingered in her mind, the precision, the courage, the humanity that had turned what could have been a disaster into a triumph. Marin approached quietly. "You are thinking about him again," she said gently. Lyra nodded. "He is not what I imagined." "He is more. Humans often are," Marin said. "They surprise even the most cautious of us." Lyra allowed herself to smile. She had married Elias Cade to secure a truce, yet she felt something deeper now, respect, admiration, and a hint of curiosity about the man behind the legend. Over the next few days, small challenges continued to appear. Rogue agents tried to sabotage supply lines, minor alien factions tested the boundaries of the truce, and rumors of unrest whispered through the corridors of power. But in every instance, Elias met the threats with calm, measured action. He did not rely on strength alone. He used observation, psychology, and improvisation. He listened to reports from soldiers and civilians alike, adjusting plans in real time. Each victory was not just a battle won, but a lesson in how humans operated, with adaptability, empathy, and relentless determination. Lyra could not help but compare Elias to the Valorian commanders she had studied for years. Many were brilliant in theory, but rigid in execution. Humans, she realized, were unpredictable in ways that made them almost impossible to anticipate, and yet almost always effective. One evening, after another minor skirmish was successfully handled, Lyra confronted Elias privately in the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a reminder of how vast and fragile the galaxy truly was. You make it all seem so simple," she said. "Even when it is anything but." Elias looked at her, eyes calm and unwavering. "It is simple if you understand people, if you trust them, if you refuse to be paralyzed by fear." Lyra's gaze softened. "I married you for a truce. But I wonder if I married you for anything else, would I have chosen differently?" He smiled faintly. "Perhaps the galaxy has a way of teaching us that sometimes we are given more than we expect. Courage, hope, and understanding often arrive when we least anticipate them." For the first time since their marriage, Lyra felt a sense of peace. Not just because the rogue fleets had been repelled, but because she had witnessed something remarkable. The quiet, unwavering strength of a human who refused to be intimidated, no matter the odds. And deep inside, she knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had many more challenges ahead, and if Elias could face even one, perhaps humans could face them all. As she turned away from the stars, Lyra understood something profound. In the unpredictable, daring nature of humans, there was hope, not just for survival, but for greatness. Little did she know that greatness would soon be tested in ways neither she nor the galaxy could yet imagine. The first challenge had been won. But the next trials would demand even more from the human she had married for truce, and perhaps reveal why legends whispered of powers no one had fully understood. The morning sun rose over the neutral sector with a quiet promise, but the calm was deceptive. Lyra stood at the edge of the observation deck, her silver hair catching the first rays of light. She had learned to expect challenges since her marriage, yet today's news sent a chill through her spine. "They are here," Marin whispered behind her, pointing to the massive holographic display in the council chamber. "The Shardborn have arrived. They are enormous, and they are demanding a duel." Lyra's eyes widened. The Shardborn were legendary warriors, feared across the galaxy for centuries. Each was said to possess skills so advanced that entire fleets had fallen before them. And now, they had chosen Elias Cade, a human, to face their champions in a ceremonial duel. Elias, calm as ever, examined the map of the battlefield. "They expect a direct fight," he said softly, "but they do not understand humans." Lyra frowned. "This is not a minor skirmish, Elias. These are legends. They are far stronger than anything you've faced before." He looked at her with a steady gaze. "Strength alone does not win wars. Adaptability does, observation does, courage does, watch and see." The council gathered on the command deck as the duel began. The Shardborn arrived in sleek black ships that glimmered like polished obsidian under the twin suns. Each warrior exuded power, confidence, and centuries of tradition. Humans and Valorians alike felt a shiver of awe. Even Lyra's pulse quickened. "Commander Cade," the lead Shardborn called through the universal translator, its voice a deep, resonant echo, "you are chosen to face our champions. Win or admit that your people are inferior." Elias did not flinch. He raised his voice calmly. "I accept your challenge. But understand this, humans do not fight for pride or fear. We fight for survival, for hope, and for what we value." The duel was not a simple battle of weapons. It was a test of strategy, skill, and intelligence. Each side began with a series of tactical maneuvers, probing each other's weaknesses. The Shardborn moved with precision, confident that their legendary training would overwhelm any human. Elias, however, anticipated their moves. He had studied their behavior during previous skirmishes, analyzing patterns that others overlooked. "Predictability is your weakness," he murmured, tapping the command console. "Watch how we adapt." At first, the Shardborn seemed amused. "A human who speaks of patterns?" one of them said. "We have defeated entire fleets with our strategy alone. You are naive." Lyra clenched her fists, unwilling to believe that anyone could underestimate Elias, but she knew he thrived in the unpredictable. The first test came in the form of a mock assault on a simulated planet. The Shardborn launched a series of rapid strikes, expecting human forces to crumble under the pressure. But Elias moved quickly, repositioning human and Valorian units to create false vulnerabilities. A small squadron, seemingly isolated, lured the Shardborn into a trap. Hidden orbital cannons, controlled remotely, struck the attacking units in a precise strike that left the enemy momentarily stunned. Lyra gasped. He planned that all in seconds. Elias nodded without looking up from the console. "Adapt and react. Never let your enemy predict you." The duel continued. Each new challenge was more difficult, obstacles designed to test reflexes, judgment, and coordination. The Shardborn expected brute strength, overwhelming numbers, and aggressive attacks. Elias responded with ingenuity, diversion tactics, clever use of terrain, and leveraging minor weaknesses in the Shardborn Code of Honor. Lyra watched, fascinated. Humans, she realized, had a way of turning apparent weakness into strength. Where the Shardborn were rigid, following centuries of tradition, Elias exploited flexibility. Where they relied on power, he relied on perception. Where they expected fear, he showed confidence. By midday, one Shardborn warrior, considered invincible by many, approached for a duel of individual skill. Lyra's stomach tightened. She had seen human warriors before, but this was the Shardborn, legends who could strike faster than most eyes could follow. Elias stepped forward, unarmed at first, a gesture of trust. The Shardborn smirked, certain of victory. But the human's movements were deliberate, precise, and unpredictable. He dodged, feigned, and lured the opponent into a trap he had set using the environment itself. A well-timed maneuver sent the Shardborn tumbling into a containment field, unable to continue. Lyra could not contain her astonishment. He won without striking a single blow," she whispered. Elias simply straightened, brushing off dust from his uniform. "Strength is not always physical. Sometimes it is understanding, planning, and patience." The Shardborn commander watched in silence, clearly impressed despite himself. "This human, he is unlike any warrior we have seen," the translator echoed. The final stage of the duel was the greatest challenge yet. Elias had to face the Shardborn champion, a figure shrouded in centuries of myth, whose victories were legendary across the galaxy. The battlefield was an asteroid field, jagged rocks floating in zero gravity, perfect for testing agility and strategy. Elias' mind worked quickly. He studied the movements of the champion, noting patterns in attacks and timing. The Shardborn were powerful, yes, but they relied on predictability. Elias would use that against them. The duel began. The Shardborn struck with speed and precision, expecting Elias to falter. But the human moved in ways no one had anticipated. He dodged, used asteroids as shields, and created temporary distractions using small drones to mislead the champion. Lyra watched, breathless. She had never seen a human display such cunning and courage in real time. Every move was calculated, yet adaptable. Every risk was measured, yet daring. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Each strike, feint, and maneuver pushed both warriors to their limits. Yet Elias did not panic. He observed, adjusted, and responded with calm determination. Finally, he saw the opening, a small flaw in the champion's pattern, unnoticed by anyone else. With a quick calculation, he executed a maneuver that used the surrounding asteroids to block the champion's next attack. Simultaneously, he forced the champion into a containment field, ending the duel. The battlefield fell silent. For the first time in centuries, a human had bested a Shardborn champion. Whispers spread through the observers. The legends had been challenged, and a human had proven himself. Lyra felt a surge of pride and awe. She had married Elias for Truce, yet now she witnessed something far greater, humanity's courage, intelligence, and adaptability in full display. The Shardborn commander approached Elias. "You are remarkable," he said. "Your people are not as weak as we believed." "You have our respect." Elias nodded, his expression calm but firm. "Respect is earned, not demanded, and humans value cooperation as much as strength." Lyra stepped forward, unable to contain her admiration. "You have done more than defend a sector. You have shown our people that humans are not to be underestimated." Elias gave her a small, quiet smile. It was a test, Princess, and the lesson was not just for them, it is for all of us. Courage and understanding can surpass even the most legendary power. As the Shardborn ships departed, Lyra felt a sense of awe. The galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. A human had faced legends and triumphed, not through brute strength, but through intelligence, adaptability, and determination. That evening, Lyra walked with Elias through the palace gardens. The twin suns had set, leaving the sky awash with stars. "You truly are incredible," she said softly. "I married you for Truce, yet you have given me hope, courage, and faith in what humans can do." Elias shrugged, modest but confident. "I only did what humans do best. We adapt, we survive, and we fight for what matters. You married me for peace, Lyra, but maybe together we can inspire much more than that." Lyra looked at him, realizing that the true challenge was only beginning. The duel had proven his skill, but the galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and full of danger. If he could face the Shardborn and survive, what other legends would humans confront and overcome next? That night, Lyra stood alone on her balcony, staring at the stars. The duel had changed everything. Humans were no longer just allies, they were remarkable, capable, and perhaps the future of the galaxy. And somewhere deep inside, Lyra knew, the next test would be even greater, demanding not just courage, but ingenuity, trust, and unity. Elias had proven that humans could challenge legends, but legends were only the beginning. The galaxy held its breath. News of Elias Cade's duel with the Shardborn champions had spread faster than light, and now the entire neutral sector was tense with anticipation. Princess Lyra stood on the observation deck, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the final battlefield. This was no ordinary duel. The Shardborn commander who had accepted Elias' previous victory had challenged him again, this time with the full weight of their elite forces. Entire fleets had gathered, weapons primed, waiting for a confrontation that could decide the fate of multiple star systems. Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine. She had watched Elias handle chaos before, but this was unprecedented. He was about to face overwhelming odds. Yet she also felt a strange calm. Humans had a way of turning the impossible into the achievable. She had seen it time and again in the past days. Elias stood at the command console, studying the battlefield with intense focus. His human crew worked in perfect synchrony, executing his commands with precision. Despite the size and strength of the enemy, he did not show fear. His determination was quiet but palpable, a beacon of confidence that inspired all who followed him. "The Shardborn expect a straightforward attack," Elias said softly, almost to himself. "They do not understand strategy that comes from unpredictability." Lyra watched him, captivated. She had expected humans to rely on boldness or reckless courage, but Elias relied on intelligence, insight, and adaptability. That combination made him far more formidable than any legend could imagine. The battle began. The Shardborn launched wave after wave of elite fighters, expecting to overwhelm Elias' fleet with sheer numbers. Energy beams lit the space between ships, and explosions dotted the dark void like fireworks. Yet the human fleet moved with a precision that defied expectation. Elias issued commands calmly, redirecting ships to create false targets, setting traps, and using asteroids as natural barriers. Each move was designed not just to defend, but to confuse the enemy. The Shardborn, accustomed to rigid patterns of attack, struggled to adapt. Lyra held her breath as a massive Shardborn dreadnought closed in on a human convoy. Its weapons could obliterate any ship in seconds. "They will destroy everything," one council member whispered. "Not if we are clever," Elias replied. He activated a series of decoy drones, making it appear that the convoy had fled. Then, with calculated precision, he led the dreadnought into a narrow asteroid field. The massive ship's size worked against it. Forced to navigate the treacherous terrain, it became vulnerable, unable to use its full weapons array without risking collision. Lyra gasped. He's turning their strength against them." The dreadnought was disabled, not destroyed. Elias never sought unnecessary destruction. He fought smart, not cruelly. This principle of human ingenuity amazed her. In the Valorian way, victory often meant domination, yet Elias' victories preserved life while proving superiority. Next came the Shardborn's elite strike team, trained to eliminate targets with ruthless efficiency. They descended upon the human fleet with deadly precision. but Elias anticipated their approach. He split his forces, creating false openings that lured the elite squad into traps. Each strike was met with countermeasures that neutralized their advantage. Lyra could hardly believe what she was witnessing. Humans with far fewer numbers were outmaneuvering elite warriors trained for centuries. Every human move was creative, adaptive, and calculated, yet executed with speed and courage. Hours passed, and the battle escalated. The Shardborn realized that brute strength and tradition would not win against a human mind. Elias was everywhere at once, commanding, analyzing, adapting. Finally, the ultimate confrontation arrived. The Shardborn commander, the one whose skills were unmatched across generations, entered the battlefield. His ship radiated authority and power. Lyra felt the weight of history pressing down on them all. Elias stood firm. He did not tremble or falter. He had prepared for this moment by observing, analyzing, and planning. The final duel would not be just about strength. It would test intelligence, creativity, and courage. The two forces clashed in a spectacular display of skill. The Shardborn commander struck with devastating energy blasts, expecting Elias to falter. But Elias had predicted the attacks. He maneuvered with agility, using asteroids and debris to shield himself while positioning his own fleet for maximum advantage. Lyra watched, awestruck. Each move Elias made was precise yet unpredictable. He turned the battlefield into a chessboard, using every ship, every asteroid, every maneuver to his advantage. The Shardborn commander, despite centuries of training, struggled to anticipate his moves. Then Elias made his boldest move. Using a combination of decoy drones, rapid fleet repositioning, and a perfectly timed energy pulse, he forced the commander into a containment field. The legendary warrior was trapped, unable to strike or escape. The battlefield fell silent. For the first time, a human had not just survived, but triumphed against the Shardborn commander. Lyra could hardly believe her eyes. Elias did not celebrate. He simply issued commands to ensure the remaining enemy forces were contained safely. His focus was on minimizing loss, preserving life, and securing victory, not on glory. The Shardborn commander, humiliated yet impressed, hailed Elias through the universal translator. "You are extraordinary. Your people are not weak, as we believed. You have earned our respect and the respect of history itself." Lyra stepped forward, her voice trembling with awe. "You have done more than win a battle. You have shown our people that humans are capable of greatness beyond what anyone imagined." Elias gave her a quiet, modest smile. "Greatness comes from courage, intelligence, and determination. We fight not for pride, but for survival, for hope, and for what we value." The Shardborn withdrew, leaving the human and Valorian fleets victorious. Across the galaxy, news spread of a human who had faced legends, and emerged not only alive but triumphant. Humans were no longer underestimated. Their ingenuity, courage, and adaptability had earned them recognition even among the oldest, most feared warriors in the galaxy. That evening, the celebration in the neutral sector was subdued but heartfelt. Lyra walked beside Elias as he addressed the gathered leaders. "We have defended more than territory," he said. "We have defended trust, life, and the possibility of peace. Let this be proof that understanding, intelligence, and courage can overcome even the greatest odds." Lyra watched him, her admiration deepening. She had married him for a truce, expecting diplomacy. Instead, she had witnessed human ingenuity, courage, and determination in action, and realized that humans could achieve what others thought impossible. Later, as the twin suns set, Lyra stood on the palace balcony, reflecting on the day's events. The stars were bright, countless, and infinite, yet now they seemed to hold a different meaning. Humans were small in scale but immense in impact. Through strategy, courage, and adaptability, they had challenged legends and changed the galaxy's perception of their kind forever. Marin appeared quietly beside her. "You see it now, don't you?" she asked. Lyra nodded. "I see it. The galaxy has underestimated humans for too long. And now I know why they are legends in their own right, not because they are the strongest, but because they are clever, courageous, and unwavering." Elias joined them, standing quietly as he looked at the stars. "Legends are not born," he said softly. "They are made through courage, determination, and the refusal to back down when the odds are impossible." Lyra smiled. "And you have made a legend today, Elias Cade." He shook his head modestly. "I only did what humans do best. We adapt, we survive, and we fight for what matters most. Sometimes that is enough to become a legend. That night, Lyra understood a truth she had never considered. Victory was not just about power, it was about heart, intelligence, and persistence. Ilias had proven that humans, though underestimated, could achieve greatness that even the galaxy's oldest legends could not match. And as the twin suns disappeared behind the horizon, Lyra knew that this triumph was only the beginning. The galaxy was changing, and humans were now a force to be reckoned with. The truce she had married for was no longer just an agreement between two peoples. It was a promise of hope, ingenuity, and courage that could shape the future. The first great test had been won. But Lyra knew in her heart that the greatest challenges were yet to come, and that humanity, with Ilias leading the way, would be ready to face them all. The galaxy had changed. Word of Ilias Cade's triumph over the Shardborn had spread across systems, reaching planets that had once considered humans insignificant. In the neutral sector, a quiet sense of awe filled the air. For centuries, humans had been underestimated, thought to be impulsive and weak. Now, even the oldest legends acknowledged their courage, intelligence, and adaptability. Princess Lyra walked through the corridors of her palace, reflecting on the journey that had begun with a political marriage. She had married Ilias to secure a truce between humans and Valorians. She had expected diplomacy, ceremony, and perhaps some mild cooperation. What she had received instead was a revelation, a human who could inspire respect, unite allies, and achieve what many thought impossible. "Lyra," Marin said softly as she joined her, "the sector leaders are gathering to hear your report. They wish to know your thoughts on how we proceed after the battle." Lyra nodded. She had spent the last days considering not just the immediate effects of the victory, but the long-term consequences. The truce had been fragile before, but now it had a new foundation, mutual respect born from courage, intelligence, and action. In the Grand Council chamber, leaders from across the neutral sector assembled. Humans, Valorians, and representatives from smaller factions waited, their eyes filled with curiosity, awe, and hope. Lyra stepped forward, standing beside Ilias. "We have faced challenges that many thought impossible," she began, her voice clear and steady. "Our alliance, once fragile, has endured. We have defended our people, our values, and our future. And in doing so, we have learned an important lesson, that courage, intelligence, and determination can triumph over even the greatest odds." Ilias stepped forward, his calm presence commanding attention. "Humans are often underestimated," he said. "We may not be the strongest by appearance, but we adapt, we think, and we act. We fight not for glory, but for what matters. Today, we have shown that even the impossible can be achieved when we work together and trust each other." The council erupted in applause. Many were visibly moved, not just by the victory over the Shardborn, but by the clear example of human ingenuity and courage. Where strength had once dominated, strategy, empathy, and teamwork had proven decisive. After the council session, Lyra and Ilias walked through the gardens of the palace. The twin suns had set, leaving the sky alight with stars. The same stars she had once watched in quiet doubt now seemed full of promise. "You have done more than win battles," Lyra said softly. "You have changed the way the galaxy sees humans. Even my people are reconsidering what they believed about you." Ilias smiled quietly. "Humans have always done more than people expect. We survive, we adapt, and sometimes we inspire. But it is not me alone. It is all of us, the people who fight, who think, and who refuse to give up." Lyra considered this. She had spent her life preparing for diplomacy and strategy, yet she realized that humans had a quality she had never fully appreciated: the ability to rise to challenges, no matter how impossible, and to inspire others to do the same. The following weeks were filled with reconstruction and reconciliation. Humans and Valorians worked together to repair trade routes, rebuild damaged stations, and ensure that smaller factions understood the value of peace. Ilias coordinated every effort with precision, always seeking solutions that minimized loss while maximizing cooperation. Lyra often watched him, noting how he treated everyone with respect, soldiers, civilians, and leaders alike. He did not demand loyalty, he earned it through trust, intelligence, and courage. Slowly, she began to understand why humans were capable of greatness beyond what many in the galaxy had imagined. One afternoon, as they supervised repairs in a spaceport, a young Valorian pilot approached them. "Princess Lyra, Commander Ilias," he said nervously, "I wish to thank you both. I have never seen humans act with such courage and precision. You have inspired me to think differently about the galaxy and about what we can achieve. Elias knelt slightly, speaking gently to the pilot. Courage and intelligence are not limited by race or species. Anyone who is willing to think, learn, and act can accomplish great things. Lyra watched this exchange and smiled. She realized that this was the true power of humans, not just in winning battles, but in inspiring others to rise to their potential. As the neutral sector began to stabilize, Lyra reflected on the personal changes within herself. She had married Elias for a truce, expecting only diplomacy and ceremony. Yet she had found respect, admiration, and even a quiet affection. Elias had shown her that humans were more than strong. They were capable of understanding, ingenuity, and courage that could rival the oldest legends. One evening, as the twin suns set, Lyra and Elias stood together on the observation deck. The stars stretched infinitely before them, each one a reminder of the vastness of the galaxy and the challenges that remained. "You have given hope to countless people," Lyra said softly, "not just through your victories, but through the example you set. Humans are no longer underestimated. They are respected, feared, and admired." Elias looked at her, his eyes steady. "We only do what we must. The galaxy is full of challenges. We adapt, we survive, and we inspire. That is all we can do." "Sometimes that is enough to change history." Lyra nodded. She understood now that the truce was more than a political arrangement. It was a promise that humans and Valorians, once enemies, could work together, achieve greatness, and inspire others across the galaxy to do the same. The following weeks were filled with ceremonies celebrating the new alliances. Humans and Valorians exchanged knowledge, technology, and traditions. Smaller factions were invited to participate in governance, ensuring that the peace was not imposed but earned through cooperation. Lyra observed how humans, though few in number, influenced the galaxy through their ingenuity and courage. Their adaptability, combined with empathy and determination, made them formidable in ways that few could predict. She could not help but feel proud, not just of Elias but of humanity itself. One day, as they walked through the palace gardens, a young child approached Lyra. "Princess Lyra," the child said shyly, "I heard about Commander Elias. Did he really defeat the Shardborn legends?" Lyra knelt, smiling at the child. "Yes," she said softly, "he did, and he showed us that courage and intelligence can overcome even the greatest odds." The child's eyes widened. "I want to be like him." Lyra felt a warmth in her heart. The lessons of the past days, courage, strategy, hope, were now being passed to a new generation. The galaxy was no longer defined by fear or legend alone, but by the example of humans who could inspire, adapt, and achieve greatness. Later that night, Lyra and Elias stood on the balcony, watching the stars. The battle with the Shardborn had been won. The neutral sector was safe, and yet Lyra knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and opportunities, but humans had proven that they could rise to meet anything. "Do you think the galaxy is ready for what comes next?" Lyra asked softly. Elias smiled faintly. "The galaxy is always ready for those who are willing to act. And humans, we are ready. We adapt, we learn, and we fight for what matters most." Lyra nodded. She realized that the truce, once a fragile political arrangement, had become something far greater, a testament to courage, intelligence, and hope. Humans had not only survived, they had inspired, changed perceptions, and left a legacy that would endure for generations. As the twin suns disappeared behind the horizon, Lyra felt a profound sense of peace. She had married for a truce, yet what she had gained was far more: respect, admiration, hope, and a glimpse of the extraordinary potential of humanity. Elias stood beside her, quiet but confident. Together, they had faced impossible odds, challenged legends, and proven that humans were not to be underestimated. And as they looked out across the galaxy, Lyra knew one thing for certain: the story of humanity had only just begun, and the future would be brighter because of it. The galaxy had learned a new lesson: strength alone does not define greatness. Courage, intelligence, determination, and the refusal to give up, these were the qualities that made legends. And humans, through the quiet heroism of one man, had proven they possessed all of them. The truce was no longer just an agreement, it was a promise. A promise that the galaxy, once divided by fear and war, could be united through understanding, ingenuity, and hope. Lyra turned to Elias, her eyes shining. "You have changed the galaxy," she said softly. He looked at her, smiling but modest. We have changed the galaxy, humans and Valorians together. That is the true victory. And for the first time, Lyra felt that the future, uncertain, vast, and full of challenges, was something to be embraced, not feared. Together they had faced legends. Together they would face whatever came next. And humanity, once underestimated, would continue to rise, undaunted, clever, and inspiring, a force the galaxy would never forget.